and the peacocks and the parrots and the monkeys and the bees and all the animals of the forest that were around, they all came, and when they saw Krishna in that state, in their own voices, they were all crying, helplessly. It was millions of times worse than any pain or death to their hearts. At that time, by Krishna's own will, his Yogamaya potency created inauspicious conditions in the atmosphere, on the land, in the air, and in the bodies. In the land, there was earthquakes, and jackals started howling at the sun. In the sky, there were meteors falling. And the sun, because as we were saying, it was the middle of the summer, and it was around noontime, the sun looked dark. And people's bodies, men in the left side, women in the right side, were throbbing and trembling uncontrollably. And why did Krishna produce these inauspicious signs? Because he wanted all the Brajabasis from the whole of Brajadam to come to see him dance. So Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda back at their homes, when they saw all these inauspicious apparent situations, they become very afraid. And all the cowherd men and all the gopis came to Nanda and Yashoda with the same question, because their life and soul was Krishna. Everyone was only thinking of Krishna's happiness, Krishna's pleasure, Krishna's well-being. So they asked Nanda Maharaj, is Balaram with Krishna today? Because they know as long as Balaram is there really couldn't be too much problem with Krishna, because Balaram was so happy to do heroic deeds. And Balaram was Krishna's dearmost friend and brother, but he was also older, slightly, so he was always protecting Krishna. When they found out that Balaram is home, they felt completely helplessly crippled with worry for Krishna. Sanatana Goswami tells, for a devotee, there's only one thing that creates auspiciousness, and that's Krishna's mercy. The only real cause of auspiciousness for a Vaishnava is Krishna's mercy. And that is why Srimad Bhagavatam tells the supreme auspicious of all activities is that which invokes Krishna's mercy. And in this age, that is the chanting of his holy name. They were so much worried. And everything just seemed to be becoming more and more dangerous. Where is Krishna? Everyone left their homes to search for Krishna, to see if he was all right. the only way to find Krishna was his footprints. So they began to search for Krishna's little footprints. And Vrindavan was such a place that everyone loved Krishna and honored his footprints so much. It was the ornament of Braj Bhumi was Krishna's footprints. So no cow, no cowherd boy, no deer, no peacock, not even the monkeys. Nobody would ever step on Krishna's footprints. It was Krishna's grace. So they were following the little footprints. And the worry was so much because of all these meteors and earthquakes, and something was happening in their hearts that made them so worried that Krishna the only reason we could be feeling this way is Krishna is either in danger or is dead. That's what everyone was feeling. Krishna awakened that thought in them. And everyone left their homes. Every gopa, every gopi, the young, the old, even the children, little tiny children who never in their whole life at this point had entered into the forest. Whether they were running, whether they were crawling, or if they couldn't even crawl, their mother was taking them with them. Nobody stayed behind. Everybody was weeping, following the little footprints of Krishna. And Krishna made it so exciting. They'd follow his footprints, and then they'd come to a grassy area where there was no footprints. And they're searching frantically. Everybody's looking, trying to... And if anybody saw a footprint, they'd tell everybody else, I found one, I found one. They're looking, nobody could find any footprints. There's grass or there's rocks. And then they'd find a little footprint in the dust. You see, you're all coughing because of the dust, but they were looking for the dust because that's where Krishna's footprints could be seen. And they went deeper and deeper into the forest, through the pasture grounds. And our beloved acharyas tell that Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda, the gopas, the gopis, the young ones, the old ones, everyone, they're searching. And how are they searching? They were in such a state of consciousness that they'd fall down unconscious, they'd get back up. So worried for Krishna. It took a long time. And plus, Krishna specially made it dramatic. Because that day, he didn't just take his friends there to the Yamuna's lake. He took his friends in all different directions, in all different forests, and played so many games, so they were going all over the place, trying to find Krishna. And finally, after a long time of this frantic, dramatic search, they came to the lake, Kaliyada. And there, what did they see? The first thing that Nanda and Yashoda and all of the gopas and gopis saw was all the cowherd boys unconscious. Some of them, the only state of consciousness they had was they were just crying. And they saw the animals crying. And sometimes a little gopa would come up to consciousness, cry, and fall unconscious again. That's what they see. Why? And then they looked in the lake, and they saw this bubbling, dark, thick poison. And in the center of that, there's a horrible monster of a many-hooded serpent. And in its enormous coils, they could see little Krishna's face with his eyes closed. Balaram, the whole time everyone was looking for Krishna. The whole time they were being terrified by the inauspicious omens. He was laughing out loud. The reason he was laughing, one, is because he was keeping them alive. Because they were so worried about Krishna. There was no way they could live in that state. So he was laughing really loud the whole time because Balaram loves Krishna so much, and if Balaram's laughing, there must be some hope in all of this. So he was creating a very mystical balance. And also he was thinking, in my incarnation of Sheshanaga, Krishna never plays with me. And now Krishna is playing with this insignificant, mundane little water snake named Kaliya. Balaram understood the supreme power of Krishna and understood the mind of Krishna. So he was laughing. And he kept laughing when everybody was falling unconscious, seeing Krishna in the serpent. And Yashoda Mai, she wasn't thinking intellectually. She was just only thinking, I must be there with my Gopal. He's in the clutches of the serpent. I will go and be with him. And she rushed to enter into the water. And the other elderly gopis who were suffering as much as her, because all the elderly gopis loved Krishna just like Yashoda Mai loved Krishna. They held Yashoda back. She was struggling. She didn't think whether the water's poison or not poison. It didn't make any difference to her. She just had to be there with Krishna for him. They were holding her back. And they were weeping, crying, tears. And Yashoda Mai would fall unconscious and try to get back in the water, and they'd hold her back. And the only way they could pacify her was singing Krishna's pastimes. That Krishna will be all right. Putana. They'd sing the story of how Krishna was taken away by Putana, and still he was saved. And then he was taken away, and then the great Sakatasura, the cart, fell, and Krishna was saved. And Trinavarta, that great whirlwind picked up Krishna, and Krishna was saved. And the Arjuna trees fell on both sides, and Krishna was saved. And there was Bakasura, and there was Vatsasura. So many times, Krishna always gets saved. Yashoda Mai, have no fear. Krishna will be all right. He will be saved. And they'd be singing these things, and it would just be enough to keep Yashoda Mai alive and out of the water. And while they were singing this, they were weeping and crying. And even the gopis, they'd be singing it, but then they could not bear seeing Krishna, and they'd fall unconscious, and they had to keep taking turns to keep each other out of the water. And in this way, the elderly gopis, they were all trying to save each other by chanting Krishna's pastimes. And the gopas, Nanda Maharaj, Upananda, Abhinanda, Sunanda, Nandana, they all wanted to just rush in the water. But Balaram, he expanded himself for every single cowherd man and stood in front of them and forcibly stopped them from going in the water. And the gopis, the young gopis, seeing Krishna in this condition, it was unbearable. Sunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives us this verse. Yugayatam nameshena chakshusha prabhrushayatam sunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. That a moment in separation of Krishna, a nimesh, a fraction of the time it takes for the eyebrow to involuntarily blink. It's that amount of time in separation from Krishna seems like a yuga. To make it understandable to us, Prabhupada says 12 years or more, and a yuga is a lot more. Bereft of the vision of Govinda, the whole world is a dreary void. Sri Radharani and the Braja Gopis, they had given their life to Krishna. Their body, their minds, their souls, everything belonged to Krishna. Everything was the pleasure of Krishna. Just the night before, Krishna was glancing upon them. Krishna was smiling upon them. Krishna was speaking sweet words that was charming their hearts. They had given their hearts, their lives, their everything only for Krishna. Krishna was their life. The soul is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. There's nothing more dear to a person in this world than their own soul, their Atma, because that's our life. Without our life, we can't love anyone, we can't find any happiness, we can't have any relationships. That's our conception. So the soul is so dear to a person's life. But more dear than the soul is the Paramatma, the super soul. And more dear than the super soul is Bhagavan, Krishna, the supreme soul. This was the gopis. They were completely liberated souls. They were totally beyond any materialistic bodily conception of life. Their bodies, their senses, their minds were totally spiritually beyond liberation in the state of the highest ecstatic love. And in that state, the pain, the unbearable pain of seeing Krishna in that situation should not be seen as anything mundane. It's actually staged by Krishna to give them the experience of the highest possible absorption in spiritual ecstasy. When we feel pain for anything of this temporary world, pain is pain, especially the loss of something or someone that we love. But when that object is Krishna, that pain is ananda, because it's on this spiritual platform beyond death and beyond suffering. Suffering is ecstasy, and suffering in that ecstatic state is only meant to give us a deeper absorption in our love for Krishna. The gopis, how did they stay alive? Only by Krishna's mercy. They were seeing him apparently dead, lifeless, in the coils of Kaliya. He wasn't glancing upon them. He wasn't smiling upon them. They saw out of compassion. They weren't just thinking of themselves. They understood Krishna's Priyatama. He's the supreme beloved of everyone. He's the soul of the universe. He's the soul of all living beings. If Krishna's dead, everything and everyone in the entire universe is going to suffer and die. They were feeling total compassion for all living beings by seeing Krishna in this state. Because Krishna is the heart, the root of everything that exists. If you kill the root of a tree, every part of the tree is dead. That is their realization. As they looked upon Krishna and uncontrollably cried and cried and cried. As Balaram left, the cows, the calves, the animals, the babies, the elder gopis and gopas, the younger ones, everyone was falling unconscious, coming back to consciousness, weeping. Balaram was keeping the men out. The women were trying to keep each other out. The water was boiling, and Kaliya was squeezing Krishna. And Kaliya was sure that Krishna was dead. What a scene. Krishna staged it all. Just to increase everyone's love. And sometimes when there's contrast, it makes things so much more exciting. Just like if you're really hungry, then when you get a nice feast that Gauranga Prabhu and his team makes, then you enjoy it even more. Yes? Let us thank Gauranga Prabhu and the whole kitchen crew for their wonderful prasad. Whatever I said in the lecture today was only preparing for that moment. And let us thank Sanat Kumar Prabhu and Baladev Prabhu and the whole team for organizing this whole yatra. So where there's hunger, there's more relish when we eat wonderful Mahaprasad. And similarly, when there's separation, there's a special quality in meeting. So Krishna staged this wonderful event in such a way that he was in the coils of Kaliya for about 2 hours. And for the Brijabasis who were seeing Krishna in that state, every moment was like millions of years of pain. The pain of ecstatic love for Krishna. So it came to the point where they were suffering so piteously. They were crying and crying. They all just wanted to jump in those waters and just give their lives to help Krishna. And if Krishna is dead, they didn't want to live anymore. When it came to a crescendo of spiritual emotion, Krishna understood the Brijabasis can't live any longer. So he did something that nobody could see because he was totally covered by the coils of Kaliya. He began to expand his body. Kaliya had supernatural strength. He was trying to crush little Krishna, and Krishna was expanding his body, and Kali was trying to hold him. And ultimately, Krishna expanded. Nobody could see what was going on. He still had his eyes closed. They all thought he was still unconscious, except Kaliya. And Kaliya thought he was dead until he started growing and growing. And there was this competition between them. And finally, Kaliya was about to burst because he just couldn't keep Krishna in his coils, and his coil loosened. Krishna opened his eyes, and he smiled, and he slipped out of Kaliya's coils and jumped in the water. Kaliya understood at this moment that Krishna is extremely powerful. Otherwise, he could have never lived through that and escaped what I have done. So he gazed at Krishna with so much anger. Snakes, their tongues go into two parts. Kaliya's all of his hoods were raised very high, and his tongues were flittering in and out of his mouth, licking his lips. And Kaliya was so angry that his red eyes were practically flames, unblinkingly gazing at Krishna, all his eyes. And he was so angry that fire was flying out of his nostrils and his mouth. He just gazed at Krishna. And Krishna was swimming around again. But as Krishna was swimming, with unblinking eyes, he was gazing at Kaliya's eyes. It was eye to eye. Kaliya flung at Krishna to bite him again. And Krishna he was in the water, half submerged, swimming. But he was swimming so fast that when Kaliya, Krishna just went, and Kaliya just missed him by a hair. And Kaliya had all these different hoods, and all the hoods were simultaneously trying to attack Krishna. And every time Krishna would just go, and he'd just miss him. And Krishna was going in circles, and Kaliya kept attacking and attacking and attacking, and Krishna was going in all directions, and Kaliya just couldn't bite him. And Krishna was smiling the whole time, just looking right at Kaliya's eyes. And Krishna was going in circles, and Kaliya was going circles, and Krishna would do 180 degrees one side, another side. Kaliya was going one side, other side, and every time, Krishna would just barely, just by missing by just molecules. And Kali was becoming more and more angry, and Krishna was looking at him and smiling and saying, he was pointing to different parts of his body. Try to bite me here. Here, bite me on the chest, bite me on the arm, bite me on the cheek. He wasn't saying anything, he was just pointing, like, come and get me. And this was making Kaliya really ferocious, and the poor Brijabasis, they're watching this. He'd attack Krishna again, and Krishna would just move. And this was going on for a long time. Kaliya was attacking. Krishna was going in circles, going all around. And finally, after hours, Kaliya was exhausted. He couldn't even hardly lunge at Krishna anymore. Krishna just made him so tired, just by moving around so fast. And not only did he move around so fast, but he always made it so Kaliya could think that next time I'll get him. And Krishna looked so vulnerable. And the Brijabasis were watching this. They were horrified. Except for Balaram. Kaliya, at this time, he was exhausted physically, but his anger was stronger than ever. Every time he lunged at Krishna to bite him, to sting him, to eat him, every time he missed, Kaliya's ego was becoming more and more agitated. And his anger was fuming higher and higher. And now he was at the peak of his anger and is in an exhausted state. And Krishna made waves. He just splashed the water. It's described that when Krishna was making waves in that poisonous lake of Kaliya, first of all, when Krishna entered into the lake, it wasn't even poison anymore, because Krishna purified it. Everyone thought it was poison, but actually Krishna purified it. Krishna's all pure. But he would make waves so small. Any part of his body could do anything. Krishna's littlest toe could make bigger turbulence in the water than 1,000 mad elephants. So Krishna was just playing. And he made a big wave. And you've seen in the West, even now I see it in India, people do surfing where they try to ride on waves. Well, Krishna's the origin of everything. He made a wave, and then he rode on that wave, and that wave went right up to one of Kaliya's heads, and Krishna took his hand and pushed down the hood of Kaliya and jumped on top of it. And Kaliya raised that hood way, way high up in the sky. And there Krishna started to move around. And Kaliya was so humiliated that he's on top of my head. And with 1,000 hoods, he was trying to attack Krishna on one hood. And Krishna would just move around. And as he was moving around, gradually, it became a dance. And Krishna started dancing. And when he started dancing, he was so blissful, smiling, and he was looking at the Brijabasi saying, look, I'm dancing on the hood of this snake. And Kaliya's hoods were very big, so there was a lot of space to dance. And when he started dancing, the demigods who feared Kaliya, they wanted to participate because nothing like this has ever happened. Nowhere in any of the Puranas do we find a pastime of any avatar of Vishnu or any manifestation of Krishna or God doing something like this. Usually when great demons, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, there's fighting. But Krishna's dancing. And Kaliya was as powerful as any of these others. And Krishna's dancing on his head. So Narada Muni came down and started playing his veena. And Indra brought from Swargaloka a mridanga. Indra's playing mridanga. Narada Muni's playing veena. And then the Gandharvas started coming down and singing. And Brahma and Shiva. And Shiva has that special drum that goes... What do they call those drums? Yes, you know. Goes... And he dances when that drum is played. Well, he was playing that. And all the demigods were playing so many different instruments. And Krishna was dancing in perfect rhythm. Such a dance no one has ever seen. Kaliya's hoods were slippery. And they were moving around violently. And there were hundreds of hoods attacking while he was dancing on one hood. And Krishna's dancing. And it was so sweet and so beautiful. And Krishna looked like he was having so much fun that the Brijabasis, it was a festival. And the music coming from the heavenly worlds was so wonderful. They were keeping rhythm to Krishna's dancing, and Krishna was keeping rhythm to their playing. And the demigods, every time Krishna would do something, at every moment he was doing incredible dance steps that have never been seen before in either the heavenly or the earthly worlds. And they were showering flowers upon Krishna, and he was dancing. And the cowherd boys, they became really happy because they saw Krishna so happy. They were playing their flutes and they were playing their buffalo horns. And just the way Krishna was dancing, all the gopas were dancing just like Krishna, trying to be just like him. They were dancing with him. And the gopis, everyone was just enjoying. In their heart of hearts, they were dancing with Krishna. And Nanda, Yashoda, the elder gopas and gopis, they were having a wonderful time, but it was mixed. Because, yes, they're seeing Krishna dancing so beautifully and so blissfully, but still, Kaliya, he might bite him, or he might get him in his coils again, or he may devour him. So they were blissfully worried. This went on for many hours. Krishna danced. And his dancing, he was so absorbed because Krishna's the source of everything that exists. Everything emanates from Krishna. Janmadyashayataha. So all the arts, all the sciences, all knowledge, all abilities, everything has its origin, its perfection, and its total fullness in Krishna. And just as Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, all of the opulences and wonderful things in this entire creation is but a spark of my splendor. So all the artistic skills of all the various cultural arts throughout the universe, throughout history, put them all together, and they're not even a spark of Krishna's loving, beautiful, supreme artistic pastimes. What was the beauty of Krishna's dance? Later on, he would dance with gopis. Every day he would dance with the gopas. But this was such a transcendentally incredible manifestation of his dancing. He was dancing on the heads of the cruelest, most envious, violent monster in the world, Kaliya, who was doing everything within his power to kill Krishna. But Krishna got so absorbed in dancing to please the Brijabasis. He didn't care so much about the demigods. The demigods were playing instruments, but for Krishna, it was all for the pleasure of the residents of Vrindavan. And as Krishna would dance, everything was so perfect. At the end of a particular rhythm, like do-do-do-do-do-do-do, like that. Every time one of Kaliya's hoods, with their massive razor-sharp fangs filled with limitless poison, came and lunged at Krishna, it always happened at the end of the beat. And Krishna with his foot would just kick it down. Like, do, 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 do. Every time Kali attacked him, it would always be at the end of the beat, and that end beat, Krishna would kick that head and knock it right down. For Kaliya, Krishna seemed to be heavy as a mountain, heavy as a universe. Every time Krishna touched his foot on Kaliya's head, it was like a thunderbolt smashing his head. But Krishna's feet were moving so fast. And every now and then, Krishna was dancing in so many ways. He was going in circles. His feet were just going with the rhythm. And sometimes he'd go high up into the sky. He'd jump up and they'd come down and completely crush that hood of Kaliya. Should I continue? Thank you. Poor Kaliya. He's so fortunate. Krishna's dancing on his heads, but he's suffering and suffering. He's not. Everyone is enjoying except him. And what Krishna was doing to him, each one of his heads, one by one, as Krishna danced on it, it became completely devastated. Not only was he crushing it, but he was ripping it apart. Krishna would dance in such a way that the skin on Kaliya's head was just being ripped off and ripped to pieces, and he was bleeding. It was really a massively, beautifully horrible scene. All 101 heads, all 1,000 heads, Krishna danced on all of them. And Kaliya came to the point where he was so exhausted. He was so devastated that from all of his mouths, massive quantities of the most terrible poison was pouring out. I'm not going to try to make that sound. Just poison gushing out of his mouths. And after all the poison in his whole system was exhausted, all that was left was blood. He was vomiting blood. Still, his eyes were red with anger. Hope against hope. He wouldn't give up his determination to kill Krishna. And Krishna kept dancing and dancing and kicking one head and another head until every single one of Kaliya's hoods was collapsed, it was crushed, it was ripped apart. And when all his poison left him, all his arrogance left him also. He was on the verge of death. He was totally helpless, hopeless, defeated. His arrogance, his false pride was dead. He couldn't say a word because he had no strength. But at that moment, he looked at Krishna. Gone were his red, hot, arrogant, envious, cruel eyes. Now he gazed upon Krishna like a saint, with affection, with love, with total humility, with a shyness, with a shame. He was looking upon Krishna taking shelter. That happened because when he understood that there was no hope in his life, he was humiliated and defeated. Something came from his heart. He remembered the words of his wives, the Nagapatnis. The Nagapatnis were very great, pure devotees of Krishna. They loved Krishna. And they used to tell Kaliya about the glories of Krishna. And Krishna, he was so envious, so arrogant, he couldn't tolerate anybody getting respected except himself. This is the nature of envy. We don't like to hear other people praised, especially when somebody's being praised about something that you're good at. Then it's most painful. But a devotee is everyone's well-wisher. A devotee feels joy when someone else is getting Krishna's mercy, when someone else is being empowered. A devotee is overjoyed when somebody else is doing something great for Krishna. So Kaliya, he hated Krishna. But when he was in a completely helpless state, he remembered the words and he remembered the bhakti of his wives, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And then he understood it. And he looked at Krishna taking shelter. He was Trinadapi Sunichena. He was now more humble than a blade of grass. And it was at that moment, as he was gazing upon Krishna, and Krishna was gazing upon him, that the Nagapatnis, they appeared. And they prayed to Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the Nagapatnis at one point, when Kali was trying to kill Krishna, the Nagapatnis were thinking, please Krishna, kill him. But when they saw he became humble, their affection grew so great that they came to beg Krishna to save him. It was their prayers, it was their devotion that totally transformed Kaliya. They prayed to Lord Krishna that first they put their little children in front of them, just to show that we're all going to be widows and they're going to be without a father unless you save him. And they brought beautiful gifts for Krishna. And they offered prayers. Many pages of Srimad Bhagavatam are ornamented, filled with the loving prayers of the Nagapatnis. That our dear husband is so supremely fortunate. You did not punish him, Krishna. You blessed him. Brahma, Shiva, Lakshmi, all the great devatas and sages, and they are all seeking to get the dust of your lotus feet, the most precious of all treasures in all of existence. And you're dancing so many millions of steps of your lotus feet on the hoods on the head of our husband. How fortunate he is, how totally purified he has become. This is your great mercy. Due to his conditioning of being born in this body of Kaliya as a venomous snake, he's envious, he's arrogant, that's his nature. But you have danced upon him. And by your dancing upon him with the purifying effect of your lotus feet, you have shown such mercy that now look, he's completely purified. All his false pride and arrogance is gone. He's gazing upon you to surrender. Please spare him. Please give him your mercy. Give him your love. No one is more fortunate than our Kaliya. Krishna heard their words, and Kaliya heard their words. And then he spoke. He said to Krishna, now I understand you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of all lords, my eternal Master. Due to my conditioning, I have acted in so many terrible ways, but I'm now taking shelter of you. Kaliya more or less spoke what he heard the Nagapatni speak. He repeated those prayers in his own way. He said, my Lord, now, because of all of my misdeeds and all of my atrocities, you may punish me or do anything you want with me. But I surrender to you and I speak shelter of you. He didn't ask, save me. He didn't ask, make me healthy again. Please understand, at that point, he was completely ripped to shreds. He was bleeding all over the place. He was finished. Krishna, unconditionally, I'm surrendering to you. I take shelter of you. Do whatever you like with me. Maro birago bijo icha tohar nityada sapratitua adhikar. Thakur Bhakti Vinod prays, my Lord, if you want, you can protect me, or you can, if it pleases you, kill me. Do anything you want with me, because I'm your servant unconditionally. Mahaprabhu prayed, Ashlisya Vapada, that, my Lord, if you want, you may embrace me. If you want, you can trample upon me. Or if you like, you can make me broken-hearted by not being present before me. Do anything you want. I am your servant unconditionally. This was the spirit of the surrender of Kaliya. Two things made this possible. His association with his wives, the Nagapatnis, and their prayers for his well-being, and Krishna's inconceivable, incredible mercy upon him. He was happy. Upon seeing the genuine, pure-hearted surrender of Kaliya, Krishna restored him again to perfect health, instantly, where he was beautiful. Everything was the same, except he didn't have any poison. He didn't have any envy. He didn't have any arrogance. Now he was a very healthy, effulgent devotee. And Krishna told Kaliya, now you are my devotee, and I give you complete shelter. But you shouldn't stay in Vrindavan any longer. Because people here are afraid to come to this lake now because you have been here. I want my Brijavasis to enjoy. So you should take all your family and go back to your home. Because his home was from Ramanaka, which was an island in the ocean. And Krishna said, because the imprints of my lotus feet are upon your head, Garuda and no one else could ever harm you. And previously during this battle, Krishna's lotus feet were tearing apart at the tops of his heads. But now everything healed, and Krishna's lotus footprints were beautiful, beautiful, like deities on top of his head. And Kaliya and all of his children and all the Nagapatnis offered beautiful flowers and jewels and garments to Krishna. Our tongue is something like a snake, the way it moves around. It's interesting. I'm not going to give you an anatomy class because I'm not qualified to do that. But of all parts of the body, wherever there's bending, there's joints. Yes, the fingers, there's joints. There's bones and then there's joints, and the joints bend. So there's the back spine, there's joints that bend. It's only the tongue that can completely curl up and bend in so many ways without any joints. It's just complete bending, like a snake. Snakes just slither around, and they go into coils. Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all of our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, they taught us that to control the senses and engage in Krishna service, it begins with the tongue. Begins with the ears by hearing, and then it's manifested on the tongue. And if you could control your tongue, you can control all your other senses. The tongue has two capabilities to taste and to vibrate. Yesterday we heard Shruti Kirti Prabhu speak from this stage, and he explained how one thing that Srila Prabhupada did not like, in fact, Srila Prabhupada wouldn't tolerate, was gossip. And Shruti Kirti Prabhu, what he said, Prabhupada would rarely use the word prajalpa. He would say gossip. That means finding faults with others, needlessly. If there's really, genuinely a productive purpose in doing so, then that's not gossip. But in almost every case that we think that's the case, it is gossip. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at one time, it was in Kuliagram, when Mahaprabhu took sannyas and came, he left Navadvip, became sannyasi, and then several years later he came back to Navadvip. And many people who had offended him and offended his devotees were coming to surrender to him. And one Brahmin, a Brahmin said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that I have insulted your devotees so many times. And obviously for a Brahmin to insult devotees, it's not just what he's considering frivolous. He's obviously thinking that based on Shastra and based on my Brahminical wisdom, I must expose this person. But after that person got the mercy of the Lord, he understood, what have I done? I have offended so many of your devotees. Now I'm surrendering to you. Please give me instruction. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, criticizing others is like poison. And praising the good qualities of devotees is like nectar. So stop, do not criticize others with your tongue. Chant the holy names of Krishna, chant the glories and pastimes and teachings of Krishna, and chant the glories of Krishna's devotees, and find the good in others. And at one point, Mahaprabhu said something very profound. He said, do two things and I'll take you back to Godhead. Don't criticize others and chant the names of Krishna. So sometimes we have like a snake-like tongue that's like Kali and wants to attack other people and criticize other people and find faults in other people. But if somehow or other, Krishna, who's not different than his name, Krishna is not different than his pastimes, if we chant the names of Krishna, chant the glories of Krishna, Rupa Goswami said, Krishna is dancing on our tongue as he danced on Kaliya's hoods. He will dance on our tongue. And gradually by this chanting, Cheto Darpana Marajanam, we get purified. By chanting the holy names and not offending others, Vaishnava Aparad is the first offense to the holy name, the greatest impediment. If we just chant and stop gossiping and criticizing, then Krishna dances on our tongue when we chant, and gradually we become purified. But sometimes that purification is not easy. Like Kaliya, poisons came out. Sometimes it appears when we're following the process even carefully that a lot of things about us just start coming out and we don't like it. Envy and greed and arrogance. and desires. But just keep chanting. Keep following these regulative principles of freedom that Srila Prabhupada has given us. And gradually the poison comes out. We become purified. And then, as we become purified, we become like Kaliya, genuinely humble. And from the core of our hearts, we can take shelter of Krishna as he's dancing on our tongue in the form of his holy names. Many hundreds of times louder, please. Many millions of times louder. Many, many billions of times louder, please. Trillions and quadrillions and quintillion times louder, please. So now, Kaliya is a Paramhamsa. He's a pure-hearted, gentle, humble, compassionate, surrendered devotee of the Lord who's paradukkha dukhi, whose only pain in life is to see the pain of others. And Krishna sent him to the Ramanaka island. And Srila Prabhupada is so merciful. He said that area is where Fiji is. And when Prabhupada opened a temple in Fiji, he established Krishna Kaliya. And this wonderful pastime of Kaliya is so popular. Recently I was in Tirupati. And Balaji's darshan, so supremely merciful. And I was observing the wonderful carvings on the various gopurams and the domes and the walls. And so often, there's carvings of Krishna dancing on Kaliya. It's like one of the most popular of all the pastimes of Krishna. Why is that? It's just so incredible. The horror, the suspense, the tragedy, the ecstasy, the loving reciprocations, everything's there in Kaliya Leela. In fact, a little later, Krishna secretly invited Kaliya to come back to the Yamuna and raise his hoods. And Krishna brought all the gopis on the hoods, and he performed Ras Leela on Kaliya's hoods. So special. What a pleasure for the gopis to be dancing on Kaliya's slippery hoods. So after Krishna liberated Kaliya and Kaliya left, Krishna came out of he was in the water for all this time. For many, many hours. And now he had all these jewels and all these garments that the Nagapatnis and Kali had given to Krishna as gifts of love, and he was covered with the flower petals of all the devatas. And he came out of the water, and the Brijabasis, what a day this was. Balaram wept tears of ecstasy and embraced Krishna and put Krishna on his lap, and he was just examining Krishna's limbs to make sure he was all right, and he was still laughing, and Krishna laughed with him. And Yashoda Mai, and Rohini Devi, Nanda Maharaj, they just gazed upon Krishna and fed him and embraced him. Everyone was greeting Krishna according to their own natures. And the Brahmins were coming and giving blessings to Krishna and chanting mantras for his protection. And the Brahmins went to Nanda Maharaj and said that because of the blessings of Vishnu, Krishna has been saved. And to get the blessings of Vishnu for further protection, you should give charity to the Brahmins. That's what the Brahmins told Nanda Maharaj. And Nanda Maharaj gave the Brahmins cows and jewels and so many charities, and everyone was happy. But because it was such a suspenseful day and everybody was out of reach of Krishna because he was in that lake all day dancing and in the coils and swimming, they all just wanted to be with Krishna. They couldn't give up his association. So they decided, let's just take rest tonight on the banks of the Yamuna. Because by this time it had become dark. And gazing upon Krishna, in the presence of Krishna, all the gopis and all the gopas and all the cows and all the calves and all the Brahmins and everybody, the peacocks, the parrots, everyone was going to spend the whole night with Krishna in the forest. And they all went to sleep. But Vrindavan Leela is full of sweetness and then extraordinary challenges which make things sweeter. The moon, the stars, the cuckoo birds, kokila, they're all singing, and the bees are humming, and the jasmines are blowing, and the river Yamuna with all its lotus flowers, beautiful fragrances. Oh, it's millions and billions of times beyond heaven, the pleasure of Vrindavan as they fell asleep together. Suddenly, they woke up. There was a fire surrounding them on all four sides. The fire was like impenetrable, thick walls, and they were reaching the clouds in the sky, practically reaching the stars. It was a massive fire because it was summertime. Fires happen in the summer. But this fire, it was like a demoniac fire. And it was on the verge of totally burning everything and everyone to ashes. And the Brijabasis, who had just blessed Krishna, they all looked at Krishna as their only shelter. Krishna, your cows are in distress, and so are we. Please give us shelter so that we can serve you. That was it. Krishna just went. He just inhaled one time, and the entire fire went into his mouth and into his body and disappeared forever. That is Krishna. Samsara davanala vidadoka. Every morning we sing this song, that this material existence is like a blazing forest fire. But by Krishna's mercy, what's coming through Srila Prabhupada and our gurus, that forest fire can be extinguished. only the mercy of Krishna. Daivi heshu gunamayi mamamaya duratyaya. Krishna tells us material existence is very difficult. But if one takes shelter of me, this blazing fire of material existence is extinguished. And how do we take shelter of Krishna? By taking shelter of Krishna's representatives who are acting on behalf of Krishna. Just as the Brajavasis, when they went to find Krishna, they were following Krishna's footprints. And we're taught, Lord Chaitanya, Mahajano Yena Gatasa Panta, the path to Krishna is to follow the footprints of those who are surrendering to Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he tells how each of these asuras or demons or obstacles represent a particular impediment to pure devotional service. Kaliya represents envy, arrogance, and the cruelty that comes out of the heart when one falls victim to envious and arrogance. When people are cruel, that's just a manifestation of arrogance and envy. That's Kaliya. But by taking shelter of Krishna and chanting Krishna's holy names and following the footprints of those who love Krishna, one can conquer Kaliya within us. And that blazing fire that was about to destroy the whole Brajavasi community, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he proclaims that that fire represents conflict among Vaishnavas. Conflict within Vaishnav community is like a blazing fire. And here in Vrindavan at Radha Kund, Srila Prabhupada was with his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada, he said to our Prabhupada that the mat is on fire. That the devotees are fighting and quarreling with one another over position, over influence, over facilities. He said this fire will burn the mat. The mat is on fire. And that's the time when Srila Prabhupada said, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, that now we have this beautiful temple and people are fighting over who has charge, who has managerial positions, who has different facilities and rooms. Better we do away with it and distribute books. He said, if you ever get money, publish and distribute books. And Prabhupada took that order as his life and soul. But Srila Prabhupada also built temples. And we heard yesterday from Braj Vilas Prabhu about his wonderful appeal for the temple of the Vedic planetarium. Because from 1971, Srila Prabhupada was talking about how he wanted that temple of Vedic planetarium built in Mayapur Dham. And he put so much of his life and energy into building temple in Mumbai for Radha Ras Bihari and Vrindavan for Radha Shamsundar Krishna Balaram and Gaur Nitai. So Prabhupada had temples and he had book distribution, and he had prasad distribution. But this message was very important. We should be very much aware that we're not creating a fire that will burn down our Guru Maharaj's mat by inner communal Vaishnav quarrel and fighting. We can disagree, but disagreements should be done with respect for Vaishnav culture. We're not politicians. We're Vaishnavas. That is what Srila Prabhupada expects of us. Today, I was planning to tell so many stories, but I ended up just telling one story. I'm sorry if I went over time, but I'm very grateful to you. I hope and I pray that everyone is enjoying becoming inconceivably, mystically, and wonderfully purified on this Vrindavan Yatra. Do we have time for kirtan? We'll just have short kirtan, please. Everyone, please dance. Hare Krishna, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Satharine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi
Paschatya Deshatarine
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare
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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Jai Prabhupada
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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo
Nitai Gaur Haribo Haribo Haribo
Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Haribo
Nitai Gaur Haribo Haribo Haribo
Jai Jai Sri Radha Jai Jai Sri Radha Jai Jai Sri Radha Gaura Premanandi Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you very much. The day, Haribo, the day after tomorrow is Govardhan Parikrama. So in preparation, tomorrow we will begin the evening satsang early, actually starting by 5. Early means to be on schedule, and we'll end early also so you could be well rested for your holy Govardhan Parikrama. Thank you very much.
Rudantam Mahunecha Yukmamrijantam Haram Bojayumela Satankanetram Swasakampa Tirekankakanta Stita Raivadamo Taram Bhaktivadam Ijit Salilabir Ananda Kunde Svadoshan Vibhajantam Akyarpayantam Tari Sita Gese Bhakta-chitakvam Punate Vastastam Shatavrittivande Varamdeva moksha namosha varimva nachandra kriyaneha paresharatiha Idam te vapunava Gopalavala Sarame manasya Pirashtam kimanyai Vapunava Irante mukambojam achantanilai Ritam kundalastigya raktasya gopya Oshim vitam bimba bhaktararame manasya virastam alam lakshalavai Namo Devadama Taranata Vishnu Prasira Pravo Dukta Shalati Magna Vipadistidam padama Vihane shamamadyam Edakshirisya Jovada Marchalayadva Vaya Mochito Bhakti Ajokito Jam Tata Prema Bhakti Swakam Vekrayachcha Namo Seva Homesti Namo Dareha Namaste Sudhamne Varare Vidhamne Variyodarayasa Vishwasya Dhamne Namo Adhikaya Pradaya Priyaya Namo Nantalivaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Adhikaya Pradaya Priyaya Namo Nantalivaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Adhikaya Pradaya Priyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namamishwaram Satya Anandarupam Vasakunalam Lokure Rajamanam Yasodhyavyamana Param Vishamantya Tato Vrishadopya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Radhe Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitya Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Hare Hare. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita, Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita. Jaya Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita, Gaurandita, Jaya Gaurandita. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gaur Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Yeah, the kid, where are the kids?